Alright, welcome to another painting, Derek Burleson Art. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to put this into a series or parts. There's going to be 3 to 4 parts to this painting, I'm not sure. First one we'll spend today is just kind of get the background in. We'll get the barn painted in, and then the next painting we'll start working on maybe some of the trees, some of that stuff, and then probably the last one will be the doing the truck. But anyway, I drew the barn in and went ahead and found some pictures. I looked through several different pictures until I found kind of the style I wanted, and kind of drew that in there. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing today. This one's going to be called Kansas Barn in the Fall. So as you can see, I'm just using ultramarine blue, a little bit of gesso, a little bit of water, just to kind of thin. And we're going to just kind of put a loose sky in there. Anyway, I'm just going to add a little bit more just to get the sky like I want it. Maybe darken that up just a little bit at the top. And then I'll just kind of make it look like wispy clouds kind of in the background. This was actually a real fun painting to do. Here I'm just going to kind of put a mid-tone on the roof. Not sure what I'm going to do with the roof yet. If I'm going to make it an old rusty metal one, or if I want to make it an old wood shingle, maybe have some holes in the roof. I don't know. At this point, I'm just kind of putting down some mid-tone colors if I want to make it rusty later. And I'm just using a little 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch brush, flat brush like I normally use. On the sky, I think I used a 2 inch, a little 2-inch brush. Usually I use my like 2.5 inch hake brush, but I used a little bit stiffer brush on the background just to kind of have a little more control over it. And again, I'm just putting a base coat on the roof. And then I'll come in and I'll put my mid-tones on the barn itself and get all that in, and then we'll get the barn pretty much done in this part 1. But I know a lot of people have asked me if I could paint a little slower, not edit out so much of it. So instead of this being like a 3-hour painting, we'll do it into parts. I don't think we can get all of it done in 2 parts, but I believe we can get it done in 3 parts. If it takes a 4th part, it does, but I think we're going to be able to get it in 3 parts. And like I said, we'll break it down into the barn in part 1. Part 2 will be the trees and some of the grasses. We might put in a old round bale of hay in there. And then we'll spend the 3rd part just doing the truck, doing the grasses, finishing touches like that, maybe a few little finishing touches on the trees. We're going to add some more leaves, individual leaves on this one tree we'll put in. Now I'm doing a lot of work on this side, and I'm going to end up covering up 95% of that side. So, but I put it in anyway, just because when I put the tree in, you never know what you'll see through the tree limbs. So I want to make sure it's all finished back there, just so the eye don't see a blank spot. And I'm just kind of figuring out the angle I want. Again, it's going to be a hay bale there, there's going to be a tree, there's going to be grass. So we'll change the perspective and kind of the angles as we go. Now I'm just putting in my midtones on the barn using Mars Black and a little bit of gesso. Kind of give it a little gray color. I may even put a hint of burnt umber in there to give it on the brownish side of gray. And here I'm using my small flat brush, and I don't know what number that is. It looks like a number 2 flat brush. And we're just kind of taking our time, not getting in a big hurry. We just want to make sure everything's covered. So this is one that you can just kind of paint along. And if you need to take a break, just stop and take a break. But really we're just doing really basic colors right now. So you don't have to worry a lot about what are we mixing. I don't show my palette because I'll kind of walk through what I'm doing. But I try to keep the paint mixing really simple for the purpose of my classes and my videos, so that people can learn to paint with just a few colors, very little or some mixing, just to see what they like and practice. And then you can get a little more elaborate on your color mixing and experiment. And again, like I said, when I do my classes, it's very basic colors, and we will blend and make, we'll change the tone and a little bit of the color, but we keep it really simple for class. And that's what I try to do in these videos also. I'm just going to go with a little Mars Black. I think I added just a touch of the gesso, the white in there, just to tone the black down just a bit. Again, still using that number 2 flat brush. It's nice for getting in small areas. Now you see on the truck through the window, you can see the gray. And now I'll put the illusion of glass in the truck, but you'll still be able to see through there. So you want to make sure that you finish your barn through the window. You don't want a blank spot back there. Just going to go in with some of that black, and I've toned it down with some water, and just kind of putting some shadow detail or darken it up just a little bit. But we'll change the color on this 2 or 3 times. Just trying to get some darker shaded areas in there, and it'll make more sense when we start finishing the barn more. And again, I'm working on that left side, even though I'm going to cover, like I said, 95% of it up. I'm going to come in here and just put a little gray color on that fascia board. And I can go in later and highlight it or change the color a little bit if I want to later. And then what I'm using here is just a little round brush. It's a number 3 round. And again, just using a little black and white made of gray. Kind of using my hand there as a prop. Because I'm actually setting probably 2 feet from the canvas, and I got my paint tray in front of me, so I got to kind of lean over. Got the camera on the right, so I got to be careful that I'm not bumping the camera. Can't lean too far forward or my head will be in the picture. So I try to get my hand up there the best I can and stable. I'm just kind of going back underneath that fascia board, adding just a little bit of shade. Same thing on the front. And like I said, it'll change 2 or 3 times throughout the painting. Again, this is one of those paintings. I don't have a reference, so I'm painting on the fly, kind of painting blind here. I did go through and look at several different pictures of barns and styles and how they sat, what would look good with the truck. And again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the barn because I don't want it to take away from the truck. So I just want the barns there, but my main subject's going to be the truck. So now I've just taken a little bit of titanium white and wipes most of it off, and we're doing kind of like a dry brush technique. This will kind of look like old weathered wood. And again, we'll go in and highlight it later. Now, as you can see, now there's lines on the canvas on the barn. And what I did is I just took a ruler and I did a charcoal pencil, and I just went through there and I made straight lines. They'll get jaggedy later, but for right now I just wanted to see where my lines or my boards were going to be. Again, I don't want to make the barn look like a brand new barn with straight boards, so they'll get gnarled up here before we're done. We'll probably go in and do some couple of missing boards. Like I said, on the roof, I'm leaning to doing my roof in shingles, like an old wooden roof, had some old wood shingles or shingles on it, and half the roof has a part of it missing. So that's what I've got in my mind right now. As you can see, I'm just going to kind of put some colors on. Now a little bit more of this will show. So I'm going to kind of go through it, and I'll darken it in a little bit. Just getting all of our stuff in there. And again, I lightened that left side a little bit, but it'll go back on the darker side before we're done. And now I'm just taking another coat of that titanium white, putting just another layer, because that bottom layer's dry. So now I'm just going to put another layer, just kind of highlight. But again, this won't be the finished color because we're going to put shadow, and there'll be shadow coming down. But as you can see, still using that little flat brush, titanium white. Now I'm going to take my little script liner brush and just go down through there with a little bit of Mars black. Start highlighting those cracks a little bit. This will make your barns start to pop a little bit. But anyway, this is going to be today's lesson or part one will just be the barn, getting it painted in there. Again, I think you'll really enjoy this. Sorry if I'm making sound, my headset was slipping. But again, I went through pretty quick on the barn because I didn't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of detail on the barn because I want to spend more time on the truck. But you can spend as much time as you want. Make the barn just as elaborate. You can make it lifelike. My last painting we done, I think, was the Kansas barn in winter. So now we got the Kansas barn in the fall. A little bit different barn, but with the old truck in there. And I think in our other one we had a hay bale too. But I even thought about putting a truck in that one. But I kind of like the way it turned out. Just kind of highlight some of that left side on the top, because again, more of that will show through. And like I said, I'm just using a script liner brush now. And you can use whatever you want, just kind of whatever you're comfortable with. Go down through that right side there. And again, make sure if there's a board going down a line to put that in your window, because you'll be able to see in there and you'll go, hey, the barn slat ended. See there, I'm putting it in right there. And I don't quite know what I'm going to do on that right side yet. I'm probably going to put some trees that are in the background, and maybe over the peak, that right side of that roof, I may have a tree popping up. And I think the trees are going to be in a orangish red color. Now I'm going to put in some of them old missing boards that I told you maybe they broke off and there's nothing there, hadn't been repaired. Just using a little bit of Mars black. Bring that down there, and we'll kind of highlight those boards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix me up a little bit of brown, maybe add just a touch of white to it, and then I'm going to put in like a support beam or board that comes down through there, kind of holds everything together. And I think on my roof I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have some rafters showing through. I'm going to go back in now and start putting in the shaded areas under the eaves. And on that upper one, on the right, it'll be a little bit wider because that's where you'll be able to see the eave under there better. But again, I'm just going into the Mars black, just coming along there, making it look like there's shade under there. And we may change it up a little as we go. But we're going to just kind of work on getting that shading in. And then I will come back in and start putting some grayer tones, but I'll water that black down so it's almost transparent, and I'll just kind of wash it on there. But I think this is going to just about do it for part one. So I hope you really, really enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you real soon for part two.